Hi, I'm Mary Kathleen Mehuron, and I am here with a resident of Waitsfield who you must know because he wears so many hats. Mr. Fred Messer is here with me today. He is a member of the Select Board in Waitsfield. He is a recent president of the Waitsfield Historical Society. He's instrumental in having formed the Waite House Commission, which is going to try to fix and maintain our very first and most historical building, the Waite House. He is also participating in the initiative to raise money to that end, the Save the Waite House project. He's the town health officer, and he's one more thing. That one of the reasons we're here is I don't really understand what it is. Fred, what is your final hat that you wear?
I'm the Emergency Management Director for the town of Waitsfield, helping coordinate town resources when we have an emergency.
And so the first thing we wanted to answer, because in talking to you over time, I would just say, what is emergency management? Give us some examples.
Well, the textbook answer to that would be the process of preparing for, responding to, recovering from, and mitigating man-made and natural disasters. It's a real mouthful. But we call it all hazard management. Regardless of what the hazard is, emergency management would be managing the response.
I wouldn't have given it a thought, except the last few years. We've had some extreme weather that has damaged property, roads, bridges, especially up in Fayston lately. Homes. And so that's a big job, because when it's either you don't even think about it or it is ruining your life at the moment.
Yeah. Well, in emergency management, the prepare is ahead of time, we write plans, we come up with solutions ahead of time. After every town meeting day, I prepare a local emergency management plan. It's due to the state 2 months afterwards for their approval and coordination to work into the state emergency operation plan. It identifies different hazards that we have and how we can respond to them, resources that we would have available to respond to any particular emergency.
So we have more than one town in our valley. We tend to think of us as one community, but who's in charge?
Locally, it's the emergency management, it's a select board.
Each select board?
Each select board for each town who appoints an emergency management director and coordinator. In Warren, we got Jeff Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
In Moortown, we got Stephen Pratt. In Fayston, we've got Kristen Savage. They're doing the same job I'm doing. There has been some talk, we're just in the initial phases of thinking about maybe doing a valley-wide, Mad River Valley-wide Office of Emergency Management to coordinate our resources a little bit more. But each town is responsible for their own response.
I'm looking at kind of suggested questions that we want to target. So we answered who's in charge of the relief effort, but who else is part of the response? You get the call. Who else do you reach out to?
Well, we have a lot of people involved. Depending on the type of emergency, you have to tailor the response to the emergency. But I would call on the fire department, the ambulance, public works, or town road crew, town administration, because they get track of all the data so we can file for FEMA relief money. We might open the Red Cross shelter, which is our school. We've got 25 beds, 50 blankets.
The Waitsfield Elementary School?
Elementary school is Waitsfield's Red Cross emergency shelter. Each town has their own. Since Waitsfield does have beds and bedding and simple stuff, if something happened in one of the other towns here in the valley, and I know that they don't have this equipment, I would either loan it to them or I'd set up the Red Cross shelter at the school if it's out of session. Yep.
Can you think of a time where you actually had to utilize most of those services?
Irene.
Irene.
When Tropical Storm Irene blew through the valley, you know, I was calling on people for animal response, taking care of animals. Volunteers. We had a huge volunteer effort going on during Irene, and I needed to coordinate that, not only for the safety of the volunteers, but also to capture the hours that they work, because we could use that as an in-kind match when we apply for FEMA for relief. Clergy, food shelf. There's a lot of people, depending on the situation, that can be involved in a response. And Irene tapped almost every one of them.
So let me relate a personal experience about Irene, and you can speak to this because I think you will. So we sit a little bit up on a hill, and Irene, yeah, there was a lot of rain. I actually had a leak in my ceiling, but I wasn't taking it very seriously until I got in the car to drive from my house to the Mehuron's market, and I saw the National Guard on Bridge Street giving out water. And then I was in panic, and I wanted to start thinking of ways that I could gather people and help. So speak to that, how you want to avoid taking personal efforts. You want to connect.
Right. Well, I need to organize that group, and I do that by assigning a coordinator of volunteers, spontaneous volunteer coordinator. Here in Waitsfield, we've designated the Masonic Lodge downstairs at in the dining room as the center for the volunteers to collect and get organized and take in missions and assign missions to people. Make sure that they get proper safety equipment and everything before they go out and everything, and coordinate everything. So yeah, that can be huge, and it was very huge during Irene. But the first thing people need to do is make sure they're okay and that their family is safe before they start going to the neighbors and wanting to help out. Make sure your family is well taken care of before you jump in the car and drive downtown.
Right.
But it's a coordinated effort, and the spontaneous volunteers is just one part of the total relief effort to take care of a situation.
I'm going to say this a few times at the end of this episode. Christopher here at Mad River Valley TV is going to embed some phone numbers and contact information. Put it down somewhere safe and have it handy.
And if not, in doubt, call your local town clerk. They have the information.
Good, that's great advice. Because those are numbers you can look up pretty quick. So we talked about who you're calling, the different agencies that must be consulted. What's the process, though? Is this all done by phone?
Any way we can. Cell phone, we sort of plan on not having, because depending on the emergency, we might lose cell towers.
Right.
This cell phone might be overloaded. It's not meant for everybody in the community to jump on and start calling.
Right.
So we're back to the landline. Landline would be important. We do have a limited radio network, and all.
I'm just wondering, I don't know if you could answer this question. If we lose power, do we have landline capability?
Yes.
We do. Okay, that's good to know.
Yep.
Oh, here's a sort of a scary thought. What happens if you have exhausted the resources that we have in this town?
Under the system of management that we have, it's called the Incident Command System. We've delegated responsibilities down from an incident commander down through. If one of the individuals that is in charge of a certain area finds that they're running out of resources, they need to contact me. So I know that it's ahead of time. They're running out of whatever. They need to contact me. I can call Vermont Emergency Management and put in a request for whatever. And, you know, if it's dump trucks, you know, maybe all the dump trucks in the valley are in use going to the response. But maybe Waterbury wasn't affected. Well, Vermont Emergency Management will get hold of Waterbury
Right.
and send dump trucks or whatever the need is. So yeah, through me, I can work with Vermont Emergency Management, who in an event has an emergency operations center set up, as we do during an emergency. And they have all the players at the table. They got the National Guard, they got the Red Cross, they've got V-Trans, all the state agencies there. So they've got them all in the same room, and they can just pass these requests around. And
Do you think that's what happened in my memory of seeing the National Guard on Bridge Street? Is that what happened?
Exactly. Exactly. There was a need. A request went in. And the National Guard can bring out large quantities of things like water. If we needed food, meals ready to eat, which we did a lot of during Irene, and other such things, I can call Vermont Emergency Management, request them. The National Guard will bring them out, and we'd set up what we call a pod, position of distribution, point of distribution, which in Waitsfield is the Shaw's parking lot, where people can drive in by one exit off of Route 100, drive through the parking lot, receive MREs, water, ice, blue tarps, whatever I've determined is the need. The National Guard will bring out in pallets, drop it in the parking lot. Cars can pull through,
Load up.
load them up, and drive out by the Brothers Building. So we'd have a continuous flow. People wouldn't even get out of their cars. This is the type of thing that we arrange ahead of time, and we know how to set them up. So when the emergency happens, boom, it's there. And that would be one of the places that we would use spontaneous volunteers.
You know, you're making me think about it. Our valley, there's kind of one way in and one way out.
Yeah.
And so it's a good thing you are coordinating, because there's not many ways to get out.
Yeah. And when something begins, part of the preparation phase, response phase, when the emergency management directors in the valley see something coming, we start coordinating among ourselves. What is this going to mean? What may we need? How can I support you? What have I got available? I might need this. So we start coordinating even before the storm hits, if it's a storm.
Does somebody pay attention to the weather all the time and then reaches out to you?
I've got 2 or 3 different alarms that goes off if the National Weather Service flips the alert.
That's
weather
wonderful.
alert.
Thank you for doing that.
And other people do it too.
Yeah.
And, you know, I pay attention to the weather. And if something ominous is on the horizon, I just pay a little bit more attention.
Yeah.
As do the other EMDs, as do a lot of the citizens here in the town. And
We've got on our bullet list, how soon after a disaster will FEMA show up? So now, first of all, what's the difference between what your organization is doing and FEMA?
there is a chain, really starting with the President of the United States, to respond to an emergency.
Right.
President has the Federal Emergency Management Agency as his working people that take care of things, FEMA. Vermont has Vermont Emergency Management, and the governor is in charge of that. So there's a chain of command, top to bottom, of the response. And from the governor, Vermont Emergency Management, it goes down to the municipalities. The municipalities are in charge of their own relief.
Uh-huh.
Not Vermont Emergency Management, not FEMA. We are in charge of taking care of ourselves. And you probably, from our emergency management, they might send out a rep to coordinate with me or the EMD, depending on the type of thing. If it's just 1 or 2 towns, they might send out a rep to coordinate with me. Generally, I just phone in if I need something. FEMA, they'll show up probably about 2 weeks after the event. This last July flood, they did send out a group that went house to house. But that's 2 weeks or more down the road.
Right.
In fact, it was probably closer to a month after the road. So it's up to the local municipalities to take care of their own people, which means the EMDs and the EMCs, emergency management coordinators.
Boy, you know, I'm pretty old to be coming to this realization, but I really, honestly, without our volunteers,
Oh,
this town wouldn't run, or I guess any town wouldn't run.
Yep, no, I am so, being on the select board and seeing what our volunteers do is just humbling.
Yeah.
We are so fortunate to have such talented people wanting to volunteer their time, energies, and some of their own resources to take care of business in town.
Now, having said that, and again, I'm going to say that Christopher is going to tag on how to reach you in the event of an emergency, but do you need volunteers? Would you like people to reach out for that?
I have vacancies on this emergency operations plan that I could fill.
Yeah, so if you're interested in volunteering, reach out to Fred. The number will follow and his email will follow. I think it's clear if you're paying attention to this show that this is serious stuff, way more than I realized before we started talking about this.
Yeah, I could use somebody that would volunteer to be the shelter manager. I've been trained in shelter management, but I'm not going to be able to do that during an emergency.
So what does the job entail to be a shelter? Are we talking about Waitsfield School again?
Yeah.
So what would the manager do?
Log people in.
Yeah.
See what if they have any special needs and stuff. Set up the beds. Or make sure that they are set up. The fire department has volunteered to do so.
Yeah, and know where they are,
And
first
know
of all.
where they are, how to get them,
Yeah.
and everything. And just, it's almost like being a hotel manager
Yeah.
in a way. Keep good accountability and everything.
So in that, if you couldn't get to your house because the road was out.
Yeah, you could go to the school if the shelter was open.
Right.
If I had a shelter manager, and give you a simple place to stay overnight. And in fact, during Irene, I couldn't get home, and that's where I did stay with
Wow.
a couple of other people.
Yeah, I'm thinking through different examples. Well, surely hurricane season, because we've lived through that.
Yep.
But it could be a snowstorm. It could be mud season is so bad.
We have
People-
ice storms,
Yeah.
wind storms. You know, we could have a tanker truck come through the valley or through the village with some noxious chemical, and we'd have to evacuate the town.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I say man-made and natural disasters,
Right.
all hazards.
This is a lot to think about.
And to be a shelter manager and to be any one of these different things that I just listed off, there's just some simple training that you can take. The incident command system is something that you can learn online in 2 hours. FEMA has a wonderful online educational system where you can pick out different classes that you can take. Usually takes 2 or 3 hours online
Yeah.
to take. When the pandemic came around, I didn't know anything about a pandemic. What does an emergency management director do during a pandemic? Well, I went online and found a course about pandemics, and that's the first thing I did, was get trained up on pandemics. So the shelter manager would take a couple of these courses. Being Red Cross, it'd be a Red Cross course to take. So you'd be trained up, given the materials, so that you're prepared to do your job when the incident arises.
Now, prepared is, I remember very well. I was standing in my kitchen making dinner, and the pandemic was just revving up. And on the radio, I heard that, I can't remember exactly how they said it, but they used, it's the first time I heard the term essential workers. They said Mehurons. I married Kathleen Mehuron. My husband Tom owned and operated Mehurons for 43 years. Now our son has it. I heard that Mehurons had to stay open. And, you know, just the idea of being, I felt unprepared, right? I mean, I don't even keep extra water in the house. So let's go there, because you have a bullet item here. How do families and individuals prepare when you don't know what's coming?
There's been a wonderful pamphlet prepared by Vermont Emergency Management.
Can I have it?
Yeah, all
I'm
yours.
taking it
It's
home.
yours. Family emergency preparations. You can pick it up at the town clerk's office. It's tons of checklists, things to think about, things to stock, things to have on hand, and everything. And I highly recommend that for an individual or family to prepare for.
So
emergency.
others that are not being handed this pamphlet by Fred Messer, the Vermont Emergency Management, is that online? Can people order one?
You can get it at the town clerk's office.
Town clerk,
Have
okay.
it. You can get one online by going to Vermont Emergency Management, Public Safety, and there's an online one that you can download.
So Warren Town Clerk as well, Moortown, Facein.
Yep, they can either they have them or they can get them readily.
Right. I would say that's an important thing. I rarely take this stuff seriously, and I am today.
It's just a bunch of checklists and things to think about, and none of it's hard. It's not expensive to prepare.
Give us, you know this pamphlet, and I'm just looking at it for the first time. What kinds of things are they helping you keep in your house?
Probably the most important thing that you want to think about is food and medications. You should have 4 days worth of food at any time and 10 days worth of your medication. Especially if you hear of a storm or something coming, make sure you have that on hand. Ideally, you'd have that on hand all the time, because you never know when something would happen. So it may not be gourmet food, but it'd be stuff that you could
It'll
eat
keep you alive.
and keep you alive and keep the stomach somewhat full.
And there's other suggestions too, like flashlights with extra batteries, a whistle or something that makes noise and that you can be constantly calling out for help. So this is a very handy tool, which I will keep in my kitchen.
A simple radio. WDEV in Waterbury is excellent about coming on, preempting their normal broadcasting,
Yeah.
and come online and start broadcasting just information about the event. So a simple AM/FM radio.
So DEV, another way that they're a treasure to us.
Oh,
We were just saying that we are so fortunate. We have our own newspaper. We are here today in our own television station. We have a radio, more than one local radio. We're very lucky in that way. How does the information, because you're in the middle now, let's pretend you're in the middle of it, something that's happened. How do people get the information from you? You can't take every phone call that's coming in.
no, but I get most of them.
Yeah.
I get most of them. I use Front Porch Forum. I put a lot of information on Front Porch Forum. I use social media. Valerie Porter is very good about putting out information if I give it to them, and I usually do. Our own town office website will have information on it, our Facebook account. And if I need to put out something immediately to the people, I can use Vermont Alert. Folks ought to sign up for Vermont Alert just because.
Is that online?
It's online, VT Alert, and then you will receive notifications of things that are happening specific to your area, specific to Waitsfield or the Mad River Valley. It's something you have to subscribe to. But if I want to put out a message immediately to people in Waitsfield, Vermont Alert is the only way I have. I've been, Claire Ireland, who is our emergency management coordinator, and I have both been trained and have access to Vermont Alert, where we can message just Waitsfield, or we could just message those people on Bridge Street, if they're signed up for Vermont Alert, to get our message.
And would the message you send to me come by email?
Any way you want it.
Text?
Text, email, phone call. All you have to do is check the box
Right.
when you sign up, how you want to receive your information. And that's the way it comes in.
That seems like such a simple thing to do. And I'm so glad we're doing this program because I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah. If I want to get out information in real time or very near real time, and the select board has passed a resolution making Vermont Alert our official notification system here in Waitsfield. So I highly recommend signing up for Vermont Alert.
And we just do it online.
Just do it online, and you pick the type of disasters that you want to be aware of, and just click the boxes.
Is there any disaster you wouldn't want to be aware of?
Well, they have some in there. It's, it's universal, so they have volcanoes. So
Yeah, okay.
I didn't click volcano.
Because that probably
But,
will never happen to
yeah.
us.
Amber alerts. You may or may not want to receive Amber alerts. Amber alerts will come through Vermont Alert. So, check those that most pertain to you.
I'm switching up the order of these bullet points because, Tommy and I always have 3 rescue dogs, and
Yeah.
2 of them are tiny,
Yep.
like 5 pounds.
Yep.
And one of your topics to be discussed is what about the animals? Because there's all kinds. There may be horses.
Well, just like us, we prepare by 4 and 10, food and medication. You have to think about the animals in the same way. Do they have food for 4 days? And if they have medications, do they have 10 days worth of medications? Can they stay with you for that length of time and have everything that they need? So part of this little booklet is a checklist in there about your pets. And also large.
Oh, there is.
Oh, yeah. And there's also a checklist in there, not only for small pets, but for large animals, horses, bovine,
Right.
and that type of thing.
I mean, folks that are listening, that might seem like a stretch to you to be worried about your pets with medication. But for example, one of our dogs is almost 17 years old, and she's on several medications.
Yeah.
So just like a human.
It would tear you apart if you didn't have enough medication for that.
I'm tearing up just thinking about it. My Francesca, oh my God, that would be horrible.
So you want to have that on hand. You should plan on being, both the town and individuals need to plan on being on their own for the first 48 hours.
That is, that's very powerful. Will you say that again?
Both the town, my response to the town, and individuals and families need to prepare for being on their own for the first 48 hours. Don't expect, except for the ambulance or the fire, don't expect anybody to be rolling up to your front door offering to help,
Yeah.
or you being able to go someplace and do something. You need to be able to be contained in your own residence, unsustained by anything outside, just yourself for 48 hours.
And I'm thinking some of these possible events, some which we have actually experienced, it's probably unsafe to leave your home looking for whatever,
Yeah.
extra water.
Yeah, the safest place most of the time, we call it shelter in place,
Right.
is home, taking care of you and your family and your own property and all. Yeah, and 48 hours before you can expect anything.
That's a
Prior-
long time if you don't have food, if you don't have clean
If you're not
drinking
prepared,
water. Yeah,
it's like forever.
yeah.
But if you've prepared even minimally, it's not such a bad thing. You may be
Right.
bored, you may not have the most gourmet food that you're usually used to, you'll be eating beans or something, but, you'll be alive.
Right.
But
At least you're not starving.
Yeah.
Now I'm skipping back to the bullet point that I jumped over because I think this is really important. I'm thinking about my mother-in-law, my late mother-in-law, how at 92, she had been so active. I mean, till 90, she was the most active person. But by 92, she really had trouble walking. And she was on oxygen. So the bullet is, what about people who need additional assistance during these times, that 48 hours? What do we do?
Yeah. Once again, it's a matter of preparing. And Vermont has a system called CARES, Citizens Assistant Registry for Emergencies. And I guess I don't have a flyer on that.
Is that something we should tag on the end?
Yeah. You can sign up by going to e911.vermont.gov. e911.vermont.gov. And you can sign up, and you'll actually receive a phone call if there's an emergency in your area. It's part of the enhanced 911 system.
Right.
And local responders like the ambulance can access that roster and check on you and check on like your mother-in-law and everything. So that's something you want to do ahead of time. So if there is a problem, if there is an incident, something going on, an emergency, you're known. The ambulance will know to check on such
So
and
we
such.
really want to encourage people who have an elderly relative, somebody who's in
Disabled.
a wheelchair,
Yep.
disabled in a way that they really can't take care of themselves,
Need oxygen.
need oxygen to
That
put,
type
and
of
again, we'll put that site on the end here. Write it down, put it somewhere, and get in touch with those folks.
And subscribe now.
Subscribe now.
Subscribe now. Prepare ahead of time. We know we're going to have another disaster. I mean, they're coming more frequently and they're more intense. It's going to happen. So, a lot of this, don't become a victim. Prepare
Right.
and don't become a victim.
And I think what you're referring to, it doesn't matter politically which way you're thinking about the change in the weather. The weather is changing right now. We experienced this the last few years. So let's just accept it. For whatever reason it's happening, it's happening. And preparation is more important than ever.
Yeah, yeah. One fallacy I hear occasionally is, I live on top of the mountain. I don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those.
Yeah, know that your road can get washed out.
Yeah.
You may not be flooded, but we have a lot of very concentrated local events. A couple of years ago, Butternut Hill lost a major portion of their road. Now that's only one small part of Waitsfield,
Mm-hmm.
but there was 25 people there that couldn't get out.
Right.
And one of them had an emergency and needed the ambulance while the road was still in disrepair.
So what happened?
Luckily, in that incident, they had just enough of the road reconstructed. They bulldozed the road through that the ambulance could get through slowly, and it happened. But we have special teams in state that can do like swift water rescue. If you're on the other side of a big flooded area and you need something immediately or need to be evacuated,
Mm-hmm.
and the ambulance certainly isn't going to get to you, the swift water team can come and
Get you out of there.
get you out of there. Yep, yep. And we have several of those across the state, and once again, that's a resource that I would request through Vermont Emergency Management. And they know where these different swift water rescue teams are and would contact the one that could best respond to Waitsfield.
Well, somebody was thinking ahead. It certainly wasn't me.
Well, once again, it's all about being prepared.
Yeah.
You can't wait for the emergency to try to pull this all together. It's chaos, and we just try to organize the chaos.
It's wonderful that you're here today and you're letting people know, because I'm sure many people are just like me. I just often don't pay attention to certain things. How do you know? So I'm picturing, the washout or whatever. How do you know when to evacuate your home or to shelter in place? Because we've said most of the time you really do want to shelter in place.
Most generally, you're going to shelter in place. If an evacuation is called for, an emergency management director can call for a evacuation. Generally, first thing I do would be I'd put out an alert message on Vermont Alert. That'd be your first indication that you needed to leave.
So we have to sign up for Vermont Alert, or we're
Yes.
not going to get that alert.
And that's exactly correct. Secondly, we probably would have the fire department go door to door. So if a firefighter shows up on your door and tells you that you need to evacuate now, what that means is you need to evacuate now, not wait. And she will give you directions on where to go and everything. So if they come banging on the door,
Do you mind if I make a personal pitch for our fire departments?
oh, geez.
The day that we had the fire at Mehuron's that spread from the ski shop, and I watched 4 towns come in and risk their lives. And I realized how brave they are. They need money. Please donate. And every time you see a firefighter, please thank them
And
for
they
what
need
they
volunteers. They need
do. And they need volunteers.
volunteers.
And the ambulance.
And I was just going to say that. Mad River Valley Ambulance Service, MERVIS. We are so fortunate to have MERVIS in our valley.
We really are.
Other communities don't have such a service. We are very fortunate.
So again, let's donate to them every year, and let's thank them when we see them.
Yep.
Because it's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of emotional
Well, just think about it.
backlash after you've been through crawling into the fire in the roof. They're literally crawling in there trying to save our business. I'm sure you don't go home and go to sleep right away.
Actually, they have procedures, people that will come in and help them, talk them down, talk up through them, and that's part of their training and their response.
Yeah.
Yep.
Once again, there are people thinking about this and planning for these events. Will there be an ambulance service during and right after an event, a big event? Let's think of it catastrophic.
One of the first things MERVIS and the emergency management directors do when we see something coming or it has struck and we're losing roads, bridges, culverts and stuff, we will start coordinating and finding a route that the ambulance can get out of the valley. Because many times we have been cut off from getting to I-89 or getting to I-89 through our usual routes. July is a prime candidate, prime example. We lost the route going over to Waterbury, and we lost the route going into Moortown. And
Now we're talking about the rainstorm in July.
the rainstorm we had in July. And we lost for a while the ability to go from Moortown to I-89. So one of the things we do is we're constantly looking at the map and figuring out a route that the ambulance can take. And we could be calling each other every hour or two, updating what the route may be. During the July event, we had to route the ambulance over Moortown Mountain into Northfield Falls, then up that Route 12 to the interstate. That worked for a while until that route closed down, was washed out.
On
So
this
we're constantly working the map so we have a way to get the ambulance out of the valley.
I'm curious because this past July was being called a 100-year flood, but the previous July was a 100-year flood. So obviously there's 200 years. What do you think was learned between the first one and this one recently?
I think the most important thing for at least here in the valley, that we need to coordinate between towns more.
Yeah.
Not that we aren't, but I think the more of the regional response we need, so things aren't duplicated, so that we share information more freely. Not that we don't, but we could enhance the information flow. I'm seeing a real need for a Office of Emergency Management for the Mad River Valley. I'm not quite sure how that will look because each town is responsible for their own response. But we have response and resources like my beds. I have Waitsfield has, Red Cross beds.
Right.
The other 3 towns don't. How can we share those? Warren may have something that the other 3 towns don't. I just want to see a mechanism for communications, for information flow.
I think that's true. As we're growing, we are growing as a community, the 4 towns. And it's so much more helpful to think of ourselves as one community.
As an example, during an emergency, we usually get a lot of folks want to volunteer.
Yeah.
Well, organizing those volunteers is a huge job.
Right.
A lot of responsibility there, because you're responsible for those people that are going out to help. I'd love to see a group stand up to do the training ahead of time.
Which is, what'd you say, 2 hours?
It'd be a little bit more than that, but the basic is 2 hours, and then probably some follow-on training, probably another couple hours.
Right.
But nothing huge, and you can do it from your home. An organization that would want to take care of the responsibility of the spontaneous volunteers. And that group could show up in Warren, or they could show up in Waitsfield and set up a response tailored to that town, or so that I don't have to duplicate in Waitsfield what Jeff might have to duplicate in Warren,
Right.
that Stefan has to duplicate down in Moortown. If we had one group, as an example, that wanted to manage spontaneous volunteers, we can share that resource among the 4 towns. Waitsfield might donate the Masonic Lodge as a place for spontaneous volunteers to coordinate, to gather for a response in Facein.
Right.
I'd like to see us work more collaboratively with the 4 towns.
Makes sense. There's so much in this. There's so much to be done. And I'm so glad that there are people like you who are trying to take charge of it and even improve it.
And you have to go from 0 to 60 in milliseconds.
That's what I'm realizing.
You need these things in place, people trained, know what their job is, ready to jump in the boots and do it at a moment's notice.
So you're calling for volunteers. How about donations? Do you need to raise money?
Always. Always. And a lot of people, that's the best way that they can help, is by giving a few dollars. And I would strongly urge people to donate to the community fund.
Yes.
That's the organization that we have here in the Valley that helps out when things are tough for people. So in an emergency, donate to the community fund and just put a note on it for the relief of the July floods or whatever it is.
And we know we can trust them. They've been
Absolutely.
doing this for 35 years,
Yeah.
maybe even more.
Yeah, and when there is an emergency, there's some bad actors that get on social media and says, donate here, help these poor people out and donate here, and it doesn't, just goes into their pockets.
That's an excellent point, because our community fund is a known quantity.
Exactly.
They are part of our community.
Yep, they are us.
Yes, they are us.
So if you want to donate, if you can't help any other way and you want to donate some funds, I strongly suggest giving it to the community fund. And maybe, like I repeat myself, but tag it for a certain event.
Yeah, just let them know.
Just let them know, and they'll take care of it.
I
They'll take care of us.
I've helped a couple people who weren't really able to do the application just because of their health or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a place on the applications to let the community fund know what's going on.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
That's real helpful. How does the ambulance, well, here's a good one to finish with. If the road is flooded and you need an ambulance, how is it going to get to you? We kind of spoke to that.
Yeah. We might have some vehicles large enough to go across but probably not. It would be the swiftwater rescue type thing, because we don't have any assets here in the Valley, trained assets. It takes a lot of training to be swiftwater certified. So I'd get hold of Swift Water Rescue and get them here. And
I know one of the things in this booklet that I glanced over is a first aid kit. But I also have taken it because I was a teacher, I was a flight attendant. At various times in my life, I've taken a Red Cross course.
Yep.
You know, talk about preparing your home. If you have somebody who's ill or elderly, that might be a real good thing to do.
Exactly. If you have someone with a heart condition, maybe you ought to take CPR.
Right.
That type of thing. They give the training right down here to the ambulance.
They do.
facility. Yeah.
Well, that's fabulous because it's not a huge time commitment.
Yeah. No, it's not. Basic first aid.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
Do
right.
it right here. Yeah.
So we're at the end of the topics, but I'm curious if there's anything you want to add, anything that came to mind.
Just prepare. If everybody sort of prepared ahead of time and not become victims, it would lessen my job, make my job a little easier.
I'm thinking just,
if
this
you-
is all new to me, but just assess your life. Like I'm thinking about my very small dogs.
Mm-hmm.
You just assess your life. If you have an infant, if you have a senior, if you have somebody with a chronic illness, figure out how you can get ahead of it.
Yep. Yep. And know that it's coming. You're not going to dodge it. Sooner or later, it's going to hit you.
Some kind of emergency.
Some kind of emergency. It might not be an emergency that I would be responding to, but yeah, be
Right.
prepared and don't be a victim.
All right, I think that's a great way to finish up. We're here today with Fred Messer. He's taught me a lot about emergency management in our valley. We have a lot of resources, but you've got to know where they are. You've got to sign up for them. And we're going to, again, ask Christopher here at Mad River Valley TV to post those very important addresses and phone numbers at the end of the show. I'm Kathleen Mehuron. Thanks so much for joining us.